Hello and welcome. It's Dan Burrus here, and I want to welcome my global audience. This is amazing to me how many people from around the world like to tune in, and I see all people on the planet as brothers and sisters who some have never met, but we're all related. And I just really appreciate you and the time that you're taking, and I take your time. I know it's valuable to you, so I only do this when I've got something really big to share with you. And today we've got something really big, and I've got a special guest that's going to help. And that is, we were in triage, and again, because we're global, we're in different types of conditions around the pandemic. And by the way, let me just mention something. There's really three pandemics that are global. We've got a health pandemic, we've got an economic pandemic, and of course, we also have a social pandemic with the global Black Lives movement that's going around. And by the way, Black lives do indeed matter, and as a futurist, they're going to matter even more in the future. But let's focus on hurting. Everybody is hurting right now. Every business is hurting. And we almost have extremes. I mean, either you're a business that's been thriving, for example, in the United States and other places, grocery stores thriving, and they're not just selling toilet paper. We've got pharmacies thriving. We've got delivery companies thriving. Many companies are just seeing record sales. By the way, they do have problems. One of the problems is how do they get people that are their employees to want to come in and work during a health pandemic. So not everyone is free. It's actually no one is free of problems. Then we have people that have had to close down their company, shut it down, lay people off. We have people that are unemployed, people that have lost all their money, people that are looking at the stock market going down, and other people have never looked at the stock market because they have nothing in stocks. And then we have people that are working remotely for the first time for many millions of people globally, trying to get through all of that, creating massive amounts of uncertainty. And of course, in an uncertain world, you know, one of the things I love to do is ask, what am I certain about? And what I'm certain about is we've gone from the triage phase to now the transition phase, and we're looking forward to getting to, and here's the rub, a lot of us are looking forward to getting to the way it was. Let's get back to the way it was, kind of rebuild it back to the way it was, which would be a mistake. First of all, it wasn't that great before anyway. If you really get down to it, there were problems all over the place. That's why I want us to be positive disruptors, creating the transformations that need to happen to create a better tomorrow for everybody. So I want us to be disruptive in a positive way and provide tools to do that. We're going to do that today. So instead of getting back to the way it was, and let's face it, you can never go back. I ride a Harley Davidson motorcycle because there is no reverse. I can't go back. I can only go forward. But I want to go forward to do something better than I've ever done. And this is an excuse for me and you to do just that. And what we're trying to do with you today with my special guest. And one of the ways that we do that is to shift from a focus on success, which some of you have heard me talk about in the past, to a focus on significance. Because success is all about you. If it's a personal level, it's about your wealth, it's about your plaques on the walls, it's about all the wonderful things that you've done in your life. Or if it's a business, it's about your growth and the money you're making and all of that. But now is a really good time to be focusing on significance. And significance is what you do for others, how you help others. The more you help others, the more you'll help yourself. And as a matter of fact, if you lead, not with trying to sell someone, but with trying to help someone, you're more likely to do quite well. And with that said, let me bring on my special guest. His name is Jay Baer. I've known him for quite a while. Jay is an amazing, first of all, I've heard him. He's an amazing keynote speaker on customer experience. He is a Hall of Fame marketer. He's the author of 6 best-selling books. He's the founder of $5 million company, so he doesn't just write books about this stuff. He's actually done it, and he's a really sharp guy. And one of the reasons I thought you need to be with Jay for a while with me is because of Jay's focus on helping, not selling. And he's got a lot of great material on that. And he has been, because I've been communicating with him, helping companies of all sizes and individuals during the last 3 months make our way through this successfully. So with that said, let me throw a question to Jay, and we'll make this a conversation. And by the way, we are going to take questions. So we're going to be, so if you got questions, make sure you put them in there, log them in there, and keep them coming. But we're going to talk first and then spend a good part of time answering your questions. So make sure if you got one, keep it handy for us. Jay, given the multiple pandemics that are taking place and all the chaos and trying to reopen with, in the United States, over 20 states having new numbers going up, and marketing is important, selling is important, customer experience is key. How do you grow by helping and not selling? Give us some foundation here.
You bet, Dan, and nice to see you. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate it very much. I know there's lots going on, so the time you're spending with Dan and myself means a lot to us, and thank you. Dan, here's the thing. All the connective tissue between businesses and their customers, that connective tissue had been built up over years, decades, more than that in some cases. None of that connective tissue exists anymore. McKinsey had a report late last week that said that more than 20% of brand preferences have shifted since the pandemic began, and that's both B2B and B2C. Yep. True for me as well, not intentional, but turns out to be true. I have a different haircut person, a different dentist, a different chiropractor, different restaurants. My wife has a different gym. And it's not as if we sat down and said, oh, let's change all of our vendors. It's just that in this next normal, what you want is different. And all the things that we used to take for granted, you can't take any of those things for granted anymore. I had on my podcast, which is called Social Pros, I had last week on the show Lori Meacham, who is the head of social media customer service for JetBlue Airlines. And Lori told me something fascinating, Dan. She said that there's a huge spike in Google searches for the search term, are airlines still in business? Now think about that. I mean, think about that. Nobody would ever search that, right? 3 months ago, of course, airlines are in business. And now there's like thousands of people a day. Like, do they even exist anymore? So the reason why you don't need to focus on selling right now is if you think about sort of the order of operations in a customer relationship, right? It's almost like a chutes and ladders sort of a process, right? Actually selling something and saying, we offer this product and service. Here's what it costs. Would you like that? That's way down the list. And so right now we've got to start at the top of the list, which is, are you open? Right? I mean, we're literally at that basic foundational level. So right now, what I like to tell people is you need to completely start over with your frequently asked questions, your customer education. And the best way to use this as a metaphor, I think, Dan, is it doesn't matter how long you've been in business. Right now, every business is a startup because the relationships you had with customers before don't matter anymore. Think about it this way. If you're going to go look and try and pick a vendor for anything, you may rely on reviews, customer reviews. It's true for a lot of businesses, not all businesses, but for many. If you've got a review from, say, December or February, whenever sort of pre-pandemic was in your part of the world, does that review matter anymore? I would argue that it doesn't. And people will put no credence in that, right? You're basically starting at zero again. And that is terrifying for all business people. But it is also the single greatest opportunity to create market share for you and your business you will literally ever have in the rest of your entire life.
Yeah, let me make a quick comment to that. And that is that wouldn't it be great if you've been in business for a long time and Burrus Research, my company, is in their 36th year, so I've been in business for a while. And as you know, like you, I've started 6 companies, so I understand businesses. And wouldn't it be great every now and then if you could just start out and design from scratch? But no one can, because they're not from scratch. They've got what's called all this legacy systems, legacy stuff. And by the way, legacy systems doesn't bother me, and legacy technology doesn't bother me as much as legacy thinking. And I think what we do is we use our legacy thinking applied to new tools and don't get anything out of it. Well, the same is true with right now and going forward into a post-pandemic world, because this pandemic will indeed end. I can't tell you when, but it will indeed end. And when it ends, I like to think of, number one, what will you be remembered for? You better be working on that right now. Post-pandemic success is not determined by what you do post-pandemic. It's determined by right now. And all of that is going to be based on your mindset. And metaphor I've used a lot of times is, there's a reason your windshield is larger than your rearview mirror. And we use rearview mirror thinking too much with all that legacy stuff. So instead of being frightened by all of that, oh my God, I'm starting over from scratch, we truly need to get excited about it and realize this is not a time to get back to the way it was, but rather a time to transform. And just a minute on transform versus change, and then I'm going to toss one to you, Jay, and that is a lot of companies say they're transforming a product, a process, or a service, but they're really just changing it because they don't know the difference. Change always comes from the outside in, causing you to react and respond and crisis manage and put out fires. Transformation, whether it's personal or business, actually has to come from the inside out, or it's probably really just change. Because you're dealing with outside things. You have to change the core. Right now, what Jay has been saying, and I fully agree with, is you have forced transformation. The pandemic has forced you. Now, if you just do changes, I'm worried about every person listening right now. I really am. I'm completely worried about you, because I'll predict 36 years of being right. Let me predict you're not going to be successful. But if you're transforming and see the opportunity and spend some time doing that, and you're a little more anticipatory versus reactionary, bingo, you got something. I'll bet I stimulated a few thoughts in you, Jay. Go for it.
Well, I think you're exactly right about this idea that one of the reasons why we don't transform is that we don't have a forcing function. Well, there is no transformation is hard because it has to come from the inside out. And usually we don't do that because we neither have the time nor, frankly, the motivation to do so. And as you said, usually we're trying to make changes iteratively in a business while the business is running, which the analogy I like to use, it's like trying to pinstripe a car while it's moving. Like you can do that. Like that's possible. Like it is not an impossibility. It's just not likely to be very good. And that's why sort of changing on the fly is rarely very effective. Now we find ourselves in a situation that we have never had before, at least most of us, and are unlikely to have again, which is you really do now have the license to say, we don't have to do it that way anymore. We can do it totally differently. And so much of that transformation is happening in the digital realm around the world. What I've told a lot of clients recently is that we have managed to fit 36 months of digital transformation into 36 days. And that's not all bad. A lot of the changes that have happened because of the pandemic are things that were going to happen anyway, right? Online education was going to happen anyway. Work from home was going to happen anyway. Contactless food delivery, if that's a thing in your part of the world, was going to happen anyway. It just now it all happened at once because we removed all the obstacles and the friction and the barriers and the legacy thinking, as you put it, that slowed down that adoption. So it is breathtaking in the changes that have happened and both in scope and in speed. But it is also a tremendous opportunity if you give yourself permission, and I use that word intentionally, to take out a blank sheet of paper and say, what if we didn't have any sacred cows or preconditions or the way things have always been? How can we design the ideal anticipatory organization now as opposed to saying, how do we just make it a little bit better based on the pandemic? And we've certainly done that in my organization. We've changed who we sell to, what we sell, our staffing, a lot of other things. And I'll tell you a little story, Dan. We first month or so of the pandemic, I was really concerned. We lost a couple of big clients who were in real trouble, and a bunch of other things happened. Obviously, no speaking in conferences, as you and I are prone to do, which is a good revenue stream. So I was concerned about keeping our team together. There's about 15 strategists on our team, and we made a whole bunch of transformational changes, blank sheet of paper thinking. And in June, we will bill more revenue than any month in the 12-year history of the company.
Yeah, exactly. I think once again, you can sit back and try to get back to the way it was, but you're probably not going to do too well with that. You've got to, look at what are the opportunities. So what you were referring to before are things that were going to happen anyway. This group that's with us today knows me and knows I've been talking about hard trends that will happen versus soft trends that might. Hard trends are based on future facts. And those of you who have been reading my work over the years and over the decades know that the trends that are really right before us now, whether it's telemedicine or using Zoom and stuff like this or social media, they were all in place as hard trend future facts that were growing at an exponential rate. But what's happened to exponential? Exponential's been turned on its head. So now what we've done is, I've really tracked this. 5 years worth of transformational change has taken place in 3 months. Doctors and nurses using telemedicine. By the way, is this just during the pandemic and then we're going to settle down and go back? And the answer is, well, actually, no. What's happened is now we've been forced to see the benefit of these tools, and we are going to have physical meetings again. Jay, you and I will be in front of audiences speaking, but we're also going to be doing, like we are now, a lot of virtual work, more than we would have in the past. I mean, I've been doing
did 6 this month.
For decades, but I'm doing a lot more now, and I'll be doing a lot later. It's a both and world. So when we get back, is everyone going to be working remotely and we can get rid of all of our offices? No, but we're going to be using our physical offices differently, and we're going to be doing more remote. What does that look like? How are you going to think that through? So let me go back to our theme again, because I want to stay with our promise of the theme of this program, and that is helping and not selling. So with what we just said, tell us more about how you can lead with helping versus selling. Just talk a little bit more about that specific so we can kind of nail that concept for them.
Yeah, I mean, the problem right now is that people are not fully confident in making purchases. Certainly, there's obviously less money to go around, and that's part of the issue. But even in circumstances where the financial wherewithal exists, there is this tremendous uncertainty gap, more than we've ever seen in history, because people don't even know what businesses are open or what they sell or what they cost. Or I'm looking for a new car, and I literally placed a phone call today, like, how do I test drive a car now? Like, I had to call somebody and say, how do you test drive a car now, right? Which is kind of a strange conversation to have, because usually you just show up and you drive a car, right? And now it's not quite that simple. And so what you've got to do is help your potential customers in 2 ways. One, help them understand your new policies, procedures, circumstances, and realities. I like to call this rewiring the customer relationship. Right. So how do you communicate strategically, systematically, factually, all the things the customer needs to know so that uncertainty gap is reduced? Because uncertainty creates mental dissonance and friction, and dissonance and friction keeps people's money in their pockets. That's just a psychological fact. So you have to help them understand what the next normal looks like in your business. And then you should also spend time helping people through the pandemic in general. As Dan said, your post-pandemic success is not based on your post-pandemic behavior. It's based on your behavior right now. And what I keep telling people is that the money you make or won't make 6 years from now will be tied significantly to your actions in the next 6 months. Because what you're doing is investing, and I use that word purposely, investing in your brand and investing in customer relationships by being helpful. And those investments may not pay off immediately. In fact, they probably won't, but they will pay off eventually because you will become the preferred vendor in whatever category of business you are in around the world, because you were the ones who spent time, money, effort helping people when they needed. I'll give you a little example from right here in Bloomington, Indiana, in the States. A friend of mine owns a distillery here called Cardinal Spirits, a small local regional distillery. And like many distilleries, they pivoted very quickly to making hand sanitizer in the pandemic for use by individuals and also by first responders and hospitals and so forth. But even though they were making a lot of hand sanitizer, they're still selling spirits. They're still selling vodka and gin and canned cocktails and cocktail kits, etc. Well, what they did, Dan, was every morning they would put a post on Instagram, and they would have a picture of kind of what they were trying to sell that day. And the caption was, we're making a lot of hand sanitizer. We still have vodka, gin, and canned cocktails for sale. In the interest of full disclosure, this is what we need to sell today to stay in business. We need to sell 8 bottles of vodka, 6 4-packs of canned cocktails, etc. Okay, that's not helpful. But when they hit that threshold for the day, and they hit it more than 95% of the time in the first 60 days of the pandemic, they would update the post and said, "Thank you, Bloomington. You've helped us achieve our goals for the day. For the rest of this day, please support other small businesses. Here's a list of some you might consider."
All right. Right there is the difference between success and significance. They were successful by doing something significant. And by the way, post-pandemic, they will be remembered for what they did.
Or what they did right now. They invest
exactly,
in
for right
relationships and brand now.
Yeah. Something else.
It takes patience, though. It takes patience. And a lot of people don't have patience. And that's why helpfulness isn't the de facto approach for a lot of businesses, because people don't have patience and they don't have trust, right? Because the patience is required because that investment's not going to pay off for them immediately. It will pay off eventually. And second, you have to trust that some portion of your customers will reward you eventually, right? You have to believe in people's better natures, and that isn't a de facto either. But it takes patience and trust.
Yeah. Well, and you can also implement some strategies, now that you got a little time, to think of now here's the question: what would make you indispensable to your customers? Because you were probably dispensable before. I'm not talking to you, Jay. I'm just talking to everybody.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
So what would you do different? And you said something about 5 minutes ago that I want to come back to. And you said, what if all of the money you would make, and I forget the time frame you had, would be determined by what you do in the next 6 months? What was that? Say that again, because I got a lot.
Your success 6 years from now will be determined by what you do in the next 6 months.
Okay. Now, what if I change that? What if I said it would be determined by what you did in the next 6 days? How would you spend those 6 days? I didn't say 6 months. I said 6 days. What if you really stretched yourself like that? That is what I want you to start doing out there, is putting urgency on this. You don't have 6 months. You don't have 6. You got to do it, and you got to do it now. But you've got to step back and think bigger, and you got to think help. Remember, everybody on the planet is hurting, which means the ability to help them in amazing ways is right there. Something else that's interesting, and that is, you're a marketing guy, but you also talk about sales, and people think, they always say sales and marketing as if it's the same thing. And of course it's not. Right. And as a futurist, my take on it is, people in sales are present focused. People in marketing are future focused. People in marketing don't care about today. They're working on tomorrow's sale. People in sales are working on today's sale. I don't care about tomorrow. That's why the sales and marketing departments clash all the time, because their mindsets are different. So I think what we're really talking about is, to make really great sales, you have to really put on a different kind of marketing hat, one that is a servant's hat. one that is really looking at what is their biggest problems. And I know that the minute we shut down, actually my last thing I did just before everything closed was in New York for McKinsey, so I'm glad I got out of there okay. But anyway, immediately I was busier than I ever was before because the game had been changed. We were in a whole new ground, massive uncertainty, and people wanted to say, what were we certain about? But secondly, I was reaching out with what exactly you're talking about and what I'm talking about, and that is, how can I help, not with a meter running. So there was no meter running, but rather, and instead of waiting for people to call me, I was looking at my clients right away, because I know who my clients are. I know who the future bookings were, and looking for what is the pain I know they have right now, and getting on the phone to them right away and asking them, number one, are they okay? Are they safe? Are they healthy? Number two, I know you have these things you're dealing with right now because I know, and by the way, I care. So there's no meter running now. I have some ideas for you. So instead of just going and saying, I would love to help you, anytime you need me, call. And by the way, they're not gonna. Why? They're busy. Right. Instead, pre-think, that's being anticipatory, pre-think, what is their problem? How could what my expertise do help them? And then lead with helping. Jay, that's why I brought you in. I love your idea of leading first. By the way, before we go any further, because I know we're on social right now and some people have to drop off, Jay, I want to, let's bring Jay's website up. Go to jaybaer.com. That's one of the websites. Let's put the other one up there as well, Jennifer, if you would. We'll put them up occasionally. I'd like you to throw those up there again. Go to that one, Convince and Convert. Good stuff on there.
It's all about helpfulness. We have more than 3,000 articles there for business owners and managers from around the world, marketers, customer experience professionals, and a lot of other stuff as well.
Yeah, that's a good. Well, he called it stuff. I would call it some really great wisdom. So let's make sure we get that wisdom. And also for those, let me give you one last website, and then we'll keep going, and then start taking some questions. And that is, if you don't have a copy of Anticipatory Organization, my last book, I'm going to give you a hardcover copy. Go to theaobook.com and have to pay a couple of bucks for shipping, but you can get it that way. And by the way, if you're international and really far away, then we'll get you the ebooks, and you can get it that way. Right. So there you can go. And if you would like to look at this broadcast, it'll be on social, of course. You can also find a lot of resources at burrus.com/hope, where there are other webinars like this archived where you can go to it. So before taking questions, I know you've got a what key actions, because we had people that have been with us now for close to 28 minutes, and their time is valuable. So if I could say, Jay, we really want to help all of those out there. What are the few must-dos, in your opinion, that they should be doing now to make sure that they're successful, not just in the distant future, but now and in the future? What action should they take?
I would say three things. One, wherever possible, I would try to communicate to customers, get them on the phone, exchange emails, whatever form of contact is best for you. And just listen, right? Ask a question or two and just listen. You think you may know what they need, but they might need different things now. So the more you can touch your customers metaphorically, the better off you'll be. That's the first thing. Second.
Well, by the way, let me point out, he didn't say inform them. He said communicate with them.
No, just ask questions.
Yeah. It's a two-way dialogue. It's not sending them an email and hoping they respond. Okay.
Yeah, precisely. A second thing I would do is, as I mentioned, people don't know how to buy right now. They don't know what's up. They don't even know if you're in business in many cases. So you have to take a piece of paper and write down the 50 questions that people probably have about how to buy from you, and then methodically answer those questions. And that is website, email, social, etc. Third thing you need to do, and this is really what we did in my organization, is say, what do we know that our clients desperately need to know right now that ordinarily we would charge for but right now we're going to give away absolutely for free. Write down those questions and then use the helpfulness principle, I call it utility, to answer those questions in a system. So within the first 72 hours of the pandemic, we wrote and published 4 complete guides. Because I said to my team, what are we good at that our clients aren't as good at that they're going to need to know? We wrote a guide about work from home. My team has been all work from home entirely since 2008. We wrote a whole guide on how to do it, mistakes to avoid, software to use, published that. We wrote a whole guide on how to do virtual events instead of live events because we've been doing it for years. I've done more than 100 live events or virtual events. We wrote a guide on how to totally shift your social media strategy during the pandemic. And we wrote a guide on how to take your existing content and twist it for the pandemic time so that you don't have to spend money on new content creation. Posted all 4 of those guides and had thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of downloads. Now, again, this requires patience and trust. The overwhelming majority of the people who downloaded those guides will never give me any money ever. And I am totally okay with that. Because there is a tiny fraction of a percentage who will eventually give me lots of money. And it might be tomorrow and it might be 10 years from now, but it will be eventually. And that's okay. So every single person tuning in knows things that their clients need to know. Just give away everything you know, one bite at a time. And people, Dan, are reluctant to do this. They're like, well, wait a second, Jay. If I tell them what I know, then they don't have to ever give me money. And here's the great mistake with that thinking. Friends, if you don't remember anything else I tell you, remember this. A list of ingredients does not make somebody a chef. If somebody genuinely believes that their 2 options are A, to download your free guide and do it themselves, or B, hire you, that's probably not a customer you want anyway, because they devalue your expertise anyway. So it's totally okay to give away your secret sauce, which is probably not very secret anyway. As long as you have trust and patience and you focus on helpfulness, this will work for you. I guarantee it.
Yeah, another way to think about it is you give away the what and you sell the how.
Precisely. That's right.
You give away the what. Here's exactly what you need to do. But if they want to get how do I do it, they may need your tools and your resources and things like that.
And if not, and if they want to try and go it alone, great.
Yeah, exactly. And some will do it and be good at it, but then some won't. And
that's why there's auto parts stores and mechanics.
Yeah, exactly. That's good. And from my angle, what I would like you to do is let me give you something that's easy, at least 1 hour a week, because that's doable. Maybe 2 isn't, but 1 is. Unplug from being a crisis manager and plug into being an opportunity manager. And in that hour, instead of looking at all the things that you don't know, why don't you have a list of things you do know? Instead of a big list of things that you can't do, what about the things that you can do? How about instead of all the things you're uncertain about, what are the things you're certain about? Instead of, there's nothing that you can count on, what are the future facts, those hard trends that you can count on? And then what you'll come up with is a big list of opportunities. And look, big lists never get done. So instead, what I would do is get rid of all the could do's, because you're never going to do a could do. Get rid of all the should do's, because you're never going to do what you should do. Only 1 or 2 must do's. And you know what? That hour will be your hour of power. It will be unbelievable. So that would be what I would want you to do if I was giving you one thing to think about. Why don't we spend a little time opening this up for if we have any questions? And of course, we're on social. People have been streaming to us all along. It's been, by the way, so nice to see all of those names streaming up and all those people saying hi. I didn't want to be distracted from giving you content to say hi to everybody out there, but thank you. Let's see what we have. Could we get a few to appear? Giving away information on ingredients doesn't make yes, exactly. Absolutely true. So again, the more Elon Musk, who is from Tesla. Now he's a really smart guy when he's not on the radio smoking pot. And and he's done a lot. What did he just do with all of his patents? Gave them all away, opened them up, said, you know what? I'm not keeping them anymore. I'm giving them to everybody. By the way, what does that do? You start to become the standard. You see, he's creating a standard, and the standard is what? His stuff. Because it's now, by the way, what did Amazon do with their chatbot, which is, of course, we know it more as Alexa. And they said, you know what? You don't have to own the AI. You don't even have to own our hardware. We'll give you the code. You can write your own parts to use our AI, our $1 billion worth of AI for free. By the way, there are thousands of companies that are using that AI right now. In other words, what? Became a standard. And by the way, they're learning a lot from all of that. So I think the idea of proprietary is the way it was, because that's around scarcity, protect and defend, instead of embrace and extend. It is about, I've only got so much, and if I give it away, I will have nothing. Instead of, humans are blessed with this amazing ability to create. And we create and create. I mean, if I gave you everything I had, what would I do? Come up with more. And say, good, glad. So we can all do that. We can all do that. How about another one? Let's have a few others up there. Your audience may never buy, but they may refer you to an awesome new client. Absolutely happens all the time. How about another one? We don't have questions, we have comments, which I like as well. Key action. Banks need to help startups loan to low rate, easy with their customers. How can we change these banks to do the right thing? I think one of the things, instead of how do we change the banks, there are new needs right now that the pandemic has created. And there are banks, and then there are non-banks. There's something called fintech, which is the disruptor of banks. So if you're a bank, credit union, wherever you are, what I say is disrupt yourself, or others will do it for you. And this, what you've stated here, is a gigantic opportunity that somebody's going to tap into. Why not a bank? So I think the second thing is, if you are talking to a banker and you have the opportunity to do that, one of the things that I've shared that's really powerful is the cost of the no. In other words, what if you don't? Let's look at that cost in a multidimensional way. And what you'll always find is the cost of the no far exceeds the cost of the yes. Jay, any other comments on this, or get another one?
I mean, look, it's tricky for banks right now because they are sitting on a bunch of money and rates are low, but it's also like, it's a pandemic, guys, right? So banks are in business to make good decisions, not bad decisions. And so especially somebody who is truly starting up right now, a bank has to say the chances of any business starting up right now may be, depending on the business, less than it would have been if this business started 6 months ago. That's just math, right? So if you're going to go try and raise money, whether it's from a bank or a friend or a venture capitalist or any of the other ways that you could raise money, sometimes what I would tell you is this: if you're hearing no, just make sure that you're telling the best possible story, because it's not only about numbers, right? It's about a narrative. So if you're hearing no and you think the no is undeserved, make sure that you're telling the best story, and how you describe your plans for the business can go a long way towards turning that no into a yes.
Yeah, and secondly, as my followers know, if you tie what you are trying to do to hard trend future facts that are going to happen anyway,
that's right.
It takes instead of the whole thing sounds uncertain to me, you're now giving them certainty and the confidence to say yes and to write a big check. Secondly, do you really need a bank? I mean, I've started 6 companies. 5 were profitable in the first year. 4 were national leaders in the first year, and I've never had a loan. Started out teaching biology and physics, so obviously I didn't have any money either. The point I'm making is, do you really need one? Maybe there's another way to get that money, and that could be through using the internet and through all sorts of tools. So maybe it isn't a bank. Maybe there's others. Let's see if there's another one up there. Thank you. Hey, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
How about another one? give me a website again. Yes, let's put Jay's. Thank you for asking. Put Jay's website up there.
Oh, thank you.
Convinceandconvert.com. Hundreds of articles and good things to download on
Literally
there. Thousands. All right, let's not deep.
Literally thousands.
Hundreds, mere hundreds, thousands. And let's put Jay's other website up there, jaybaer.com. And I've been on that one recently. That's loaded with good stuff as well. Definitely go there. And let's put up the Anticipatory Organization. If you want the book, let's put that up there. And I'm not sure if Jennifer is there helping us out. Do we have the Hope/Hope one? There we go. Go there for a bunch of resources or thousands of articles I've got on Burrus. Thousands of articles on Burrus.com as well. Okay, and how about some other ones? Thanks for asking that. Appreciate that. How about those who can't wait? Those who do not have any savings, those micro businesses and all the third, in those cities. Jay, comments on that?
Well, I think he's referencing when we were talking about trying to be helpful now to reap rewards in the future, and the question is appropriate, right? That you don't always have the luxury of waiting till the end for this to pay off. And I would say, though, that even if you're trying to create customers in the short term, the way to do that is still by being helpful, right? By saying, yes, you sell a product or a service, but is that really what you sell, right? And Dan, you've got better stuff on this than I do, but the metaphor I like to use is that nobody in the entire world has ever actually needed socks. But everybody in the world has needed their feet to be warmer. So one of the ways to use helpfulness and turn it into more immediate sales is to understand what you're really selling. And it's almost never your actual product and service. It's what your product and service does for the potential customer. And keeping that in mind is going to make it a lot easier for you to communicate in a way that they understand your value and can actually turn over goods and services more quickly.
Yeah, also, Wagner, what I would say to your question is that by starting with helping, and your need is money now, what you're really doing is starting a conversation. And you're trying to find out, Jay mentioned it earlier, listening is much better than talking. But you've got to have a conversation where you're getting into what their real pain is. So you said it earlier, Jay, most of us, we don't know a person's real pain. We know what we think their pain is. We're giving our best shot, but they know what their pain is. And the key is in that conversation where you're leading with helping and you have something that you're offering to help with, you will hear the things that are hurting them the most if you ask the right questions. And that's what I'm suggesting. And then you can see, there's some things that I could do and now make money on that I could help them with. So, that comes in the conversation. There's ways of doing it. All right.
I would say to Wagner, like call 25 people a day and don't try to sell them anything. Just ask them about what they need in terms of your products and services and resist the temptation to say, I have just what you need, right? The more people you talk to and the more you understand what they really need, the better you'll be able to fill that gap.
Yeah, exactly. Because then you can look at what are your core competencies, your personal ones, your business ones, how do they fit in with their most pressing need? Once you know what their most pressing need is, something else that people that have followed me knows is that comment is, and a strategy I have for people is, whatever problem you've got, that's not it. In other words, there's another problem. Right. So as they tell you what their biggest problem is, and if you don't know this, go to my website or get the Anticipatory Organization. I'm giving it to you, and you'll learn how to get down to what the real problem is, because I've never found a problem that couldn't be solved when you get down to what the right one is. And it usually is seldom what they think it is. I can't get money for my startup. Well, maybe money ain't the problem. Maybe it's something else. Well, when you find out what it is, you probably can get the money. All right.
Such a good exercise. I've done it myself. It's super useful. I refer back to it all the time. Dan's exactly right. It is such a terrific way to look at any problem, because usually the problem is not really the problem. Right.
Exactly. Let's see if we got just a couple more. I know a lot of people had questions in here, and If you have any that you think, I really need an answer here, we're hurting. There's through Jay's website and my website, you can find how to contact us, send us those, and we'll be happy to give you some answers and help you out with those. Is there, here's one, excellent speaker today. Oh, thank you very much.
Barbara, appreciate it, very kind.
From India, I love it, thank you. From Germany, you know what?
They're from everywhere.
People come up from France. Oh my goodness! Look at all these from wonderful places. Uruguay. I've been to so far. I've been to all of these.
Nice. That's the game. Find a country that Dan hasn't been to.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I've been around. Oh, yes, wonderful.
Nehemiah asks if there's going to be a recording, Dan.
Yes, I love all of these. Colombia. Oh yes, yeah. Last time I was there, I was talking to the president. Neat. Turkey. Fantastic. All right, look, we're all brothers and sisters on this planet trying to help each other out. And we're all, I think, philosophically, I think we're all connected at birth. And if we just continue to be connected, we'd have a perfect world. But we tend to disconnect. And the farther we get disconnected, the more disharmony we get. Eventually, we have war and killing each other. The more we come together, the less of that we have, the more amazing it is. So I can't control the world, and neither can you. But we can control what we can control. And this group that has joined us, and again, seeing where all you're from, I've been seeing this all the way through. So is Jay. It just makes my heart warm. And thank you so much for being with us. So now is the time for business to show loyalty to their customers by helping them solve problems. Absolutely correct. Let's get a few more of these come in. See if there's what major strategic advice would you give a startup service company to better place herself in the COVID and post-COVID season? First of all, for me, I would say you need to make a list of these hard trend certainties. Remember, there are different categories of hard trends. Get the book if you don't have it. Look at my blogs. Here are things that I know are going to be bigger and more powerful every year, including right now. It's growing even with COVID, yes or no. And remember, a trend by itself is worthless. It needs to be tied to an opportunity. The minute you tie a trend to an opportunity, it bursts into life. Just as a trend, frankly, I'm bored and so are you. So put it with an opportunity and then build it around your startup. Obviously, pick those subjects to look for those trends, pick those opportunities, and you'll see a way to move forward. And again, the problem you're trying to solve, what is the real problem? Jay, I know you've got some on this.
Yeah, for startup services businesses, it's a little bit tricky because you have to create evidence of your ability to succeed. And it's different than product companies. Product companies, the evidence is self-evident because it exists, right? It has a shape and a form. You can touch it, you can look at it, you can hold it. There's a picture of it, presumably. Services are none of those, right? Services are, I'm going to convince you to give me money because I'm going to do something that you want. You can't hold a service, not in the same way. And so for startup services companies, I think it's important to understand that when you're just starting out, don't necessarily only try to sell the big, expensive, long-term, giant solution, because people are going to be reticent to sign on for that because you have not proven that you can actually change anybody's life for the better. So instead, in many cases, you're better off having sort of an introductory, short-term, less expensive offer that you can get people to sign on for, demonstrate quick success, and then use testimonials of those early customers to build more proof that will allow the next round of customers to be more confident and sign on for a larger set of services.
Yeah, it's really important. I think I like Jay. I've been doing a lot of virtual speeches and webinars. I've been doing it way before COVID, but I think it was a week or so ago. I did one where I had I think it was 1.3 million people live. It was this giant thing. Would I want that to be my first virtual event? No,
probably not.
No, I'd rather have 10 people as my first virtual event, not over 1 million. So you don't want to start out too giant with the big one. You want to make sure you got the bugs worked out and you're good at it right off the bat. And another thing that I've taught over the years, and that is fail fast so you can learn faster. So we have success metrics. Here's what success looks like. I like to have failure metrics so I know which way I'm going. It's because, what, am I failing or not? Well, I'd like to know, and I'd like to know sooner than later so that I could change that. I think we're getting close to the top of the hour, and in social media, keeping people this long is already difficult. Although I know we've been able to do that, Jay, because I've been tracking this, and it's amazing how few people drop off. But I think I'd like to bring this to a close and just thank everyone. Thank you, Jay, for being with us. And make sure you go to his websites and check him out. He's got amazing stuff. And by the way, speaking virtually or on stage when we do that again, and webinars and consulting, the guy is really brilliant. Check him out. You're gonna like it. And thank you again. And we'll do this again soon. Stay healthy, my friends, and be anticipatory, not just reactionary. Take care.